to the Golden Hour. This is a comedy show today. I am so excited to be here with you, and I can't wait for you to hear from my guest. All right. I'm being crazy today because I can. And because when you're in the lighter energies of life, you're going to experience so much more. You're going to have so much more joy. You're going to manifest so much easier and so much faster. So my guest today is a returning guest because he was freaking awesome the first time. My wonderful and dear friend, James Giunta, is with me. He is a lifelong musician and certified hypnotherapist. He was named Hypnotist of the Year by the International Association of Counselors and Therapists in 2013 and is the creator of Hip plus Note equals Therapy. He presented his findings in a talk at TEDx Navesink in 2014. James holds a master's degree in communication and a Bachelor of Arts degree in journalism. Call upon James to assist you with desired outcomes such as relief from anxiety. Anybody need relief from anxiety? Freedom from smoking, sleeping great every night, and taking such good care of yourself that you will become happier and more attractive to other humans. Great. In addition to his certification by the National Guild of Hypnotists in 2009, James has attained certifications in the fields of neuro-linguistic programming, emotional freedom technique, and Reiki. He lives, works, plays, and practices in Phoenix, Arizona. Welcome, James.
Hey, thank you so much,
All right, I
Goldyn.
gotta put my thing back on. James and I have decided that we're going to be ridiculous on this show, correct?
Correct. I'm changing my name to Bozo. James Bozo Giunta.
All right, I should have introduced you that way, darn it. All right, well, I take these off because I can't see through them, but
This thing pinches my nose.
it pinches your nose. Yeah, we want to be comfortable. But I'm so happy to have you back because I don't know, it just feels good to be here with you, to spend time, to be in the lighter. Whenever we get together, I know I shared this on the last show, but whenever we get together, I'm doing cartwheels at the end of our conversation. Like for the rest of the day, I will be up in the clouds somewhere. And that's why I wanted to have you on for this conversation about laughter, about, frequency, about being in the lighter energies of life, because I do believe you live that. And I also know about you that you know the other perspective of it. So you know what it's like to feel heavy and to work through your traumas and to heal, and you help people do that as well. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Goldyn. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yay! So I want to open the conversation just talking about frequency, and I've shared a lot on my shows about universal law, mind training, about energy fields, radio station, that we all live in this big radio station, and the stations that we're tuning into determine what comes to us each day. So when you hear the word frequency and you help people to work on those, like how can you define frequency in a different way that gives people a new perspective?
Yes, I can, but let's also acknowledge there are two senses of that word, frequency. It means it. I know what you're getting at.
Okay.
There's another meaning of frequency, which means how often something happens.
True.
Right?
Yes.
But I think what you're getting at, I think of it, the analogy I use is like a radio frequency.
Yep.
Like a radio transmitter will send a signal at a certain frequency. It's a location in the airwaves. It's unseen.
Love
It's
it.
theoretical.
Yes.
But in order to receive that transmission, you have to be tuned to the same frequency as the transmitter. Receiver, transmitter have to be on the same frequency. It's a wavelength, a connection. So that's how I think of it. I have to tune my device to receive the messages that I'm looking for.
And on that note, so if you're in a bad mood, you can't tune into frequencies that are of the nature of a good mood. So that's why it's so important for us to be like super diligent about what we're paying attention to, what we're focused on, and how we're feeling, because all of that, right? It's like what you focus on expands, determines the trajectory of your life, your day, your moment, your next moment. It's so freaking powerful. If people could understand this one concept and gain control of what they're putting out there every day, every second of every day, they could be much more, they could enjoy much more what life has to offer. We're missing these things by getting ticked off all the time, right?
Yes. But I agree that it's possible to intentionally change your frequency.
Yes. Tell me about that. How do I do that?
Well, there's a couple of principles involved. For one thing, the frequency that I'm on is something I chose. It's something that I did. Now, I
Yes.
may have done it unintentionally or unconsciously or subconsciously, but I did it.
Right.
So that's the first principle, is that whatever frequency I'm on is my choosing. The second thing is that I'm responsible for that. So once I notice it, I can then make a choice. Am I going to choose to stay mired in this muck, or am I going to intentionally call Duffy or tune into her golden hour? I have to back up a second. I've heard you say this before about cartwheels
Yes.
after we meet or after we talk. It's so wonderful to hear that from you, for one thing. But the other thing is, the reason that you see that in me is because you bring that out. You probably bring that out in everybody. You probably bring that out when you're in a store
I
buying
do.
grocery. Yeah. So when you're seeing me, it's because you're seeing me.
Oh, I love that. I
You
love
didn't
that. But
see.
you have to come along with me. Like there are people that don't pick up on my stuff, you know? Because they're
I
not
don't.
because they're not available. And that's what I'm hoping to transfer today, is to get you to realize that you can't, like you just said, it's a choice. I think we do probably have people listening that are like, how do I have a choice over how I feel or my mood? And so, starting from the basics, it's like, well, what are you focused on in other people? Like I focus on the incredible lightheartedness and fun with James, so that's what I get from James. But what are we focusing on with each person in our lives? If I come across someone at the grocery store, a cashier that's in a bad mood or whatever, I will do my darndest to create some sort of lighthearted conversation, because one of the things that I love to do is watch people shift, like go
Wow.
from like being in that monkey mind, right? To, oh my gosh, this woman cares about me, or she's bagging her groceries for me, or whatever I can do to make that person's situation lighter. If we did that as a world, we would be in some good shape,
We'd be changing the world.
right? And I bet you do that for people as well.
Uh, they say I do. People tell me that I do.
You
I
can own it.
Yeah, I think it's something that I created unconsciously as a child. I think
Oh,
people recognized that I had that gift, so I got validated for it. So that caused me unconsciously to develop it over the years.
right.
It's just something I naturally go into.
Were you
And
the class clown in school? Was
yeah,
Goldyn in school?
for there was a time, yes, I was the class clown, and I still am in groups.
I bet.
But I also think that it indicates a little bit of insecurity on my part, because when people are laughing with me, I feel better and I feel accepted,
Absolutely.
part of the
Oh,
group.
no doubt. No doubt.
So yeah,
I kind of like that though, not saying that, having low, it's just finding a way to create confidence in the world, however you need to do it.
yeah,
Like who cares, right?
and that's how I fit, and that's how I find my tribe, because the people who are laughing along with me are my people.
That's so true.
And some people don't laugh along with me. Some people are a little judgmental. They think I should be a little more solemn or dignified or whatever they think. But that's what they think. It has nothing to do with me.
And that's how I met you, because you put up a post on Facebook and you were like, it's kind of alluding to the fact that you were going to kind of dim your light because people weren't receiving you. And I
Oh,
was
you
like,
remember that? Yeah.
who are those people?
My goodness gracious. Well, I've given it some thought since then. I decided, no, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
I'm not gonna compromise myself just
Yeah.
so that somebody else will think I'm okay or whatever
No.
that is. Yeah.
Look out, Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah. Well, look, I got a comment on something you said. The thing about choice and choosing,
Yeah.
it has to do with belief. I can choose my belief. There are a bunch of spiritual beliefs that I have that I can't prove and I can't disprove, and no one can prove them for me or disprove them, but I choose to believe a certain thing.
Yep.
Now, I can't choose it if you give it to me. I
Right.
can't choose something that you say you must believe this. I have to grasp it on my own.
Mhm.
I can't choose just to be part of a group of people or to worship a certain way. That doesn't work for me.
Right.
But if I do choose it, I will be part of that tribe who believes the same way.
Right.
Because then I'm choosing it.
Of
It's not being
course.
chosen for me. So the thing about how we're feeling and how we're transmitting, what frequency we're on, it's totally choice.
Right.
But we have to recognize it. We have to realize it. I can go on the dark side for hours. I might be there for a couple hours before I realize I'm doing that. And I go, wait a minute, hold it. That's me doing that.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
life doing that to me. I'm choosing it. So now I have, that gives me access.
Yes.
Do I want to choose to get off of this dark side
Yep.
and call Goldyn Duffy?
Yeah. Well, and you need a level of awareness, right? And then you also need to have that level of awareness to say, okay, if I don't want to feel like this anymore, I have to do some things to break free from it. I had a moment this morning. This was crazy. I had a
Yeah.
moment this morning. I've been on vacation for a little while. I came back home, like really late on Sunday. And yesterday was one of those days where I kind of just laid around and did nothing, which always makes me feel like a champ, You're just like, I don't want to go back to work. I don't want to do things. I just want to lay here, right? I just want everybody to leave me alone. So like reintegrating back into it this morning, and Orange County has been covered in a cloud covering for weeks. And I
Right.
got out of it. I got out of it twice. I went to Vegas, it was sunny. I went to Connecticut, it was sunny. But I came home and it is literally like this just cloud that's over Orange County, right?
Yeah.
I'm not used to that. Usually if we have cloud coverage, it's gone by like noon. So dealing with that, it can definitely give me like funky feelings. Like I live on the sunshine. I always say that. I'm from the planet sun. Like just, so my kids and I have talked a lot about this because they've been home and they're like, Mom, this is challenging for us. So this morning I wake up and I was just like, oh goodness, I got to get myself out of this. My husband's like, go take a bath. I'm like, I have a lot to do today. I'm like, I'm just going to meditate. And then I went on Facebook and I saw this girl who's homeless right now. She's living in her car with her husband and her little boy, and the circumstances that led to them being homeless. And I'd never seen this girl on my page before. And it shifted me so quickly into appreciation. And I was like, I'm in the kitchen washing some dishes and just like, so thankful for my beautiful home and my family, and that's where I started to go, and it completely shifted me out where I was able to like get to work, do what I need to do, feel good. And so when people are, what I realized was that hyper focus on what's expected of us or what's not going well or what we have to do, when you shift that into appreciation, it's like a breath of fresh air that then transfers, because now I'm having a conversation with you and we're already being ridiculous and silly and laughing, where I wouldn't have access to that as easily if I had stayed in that low mood this morning and didn't do anything to try to get out of it. And now I feel like the universe just gives me solids, like just reminds me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's the weather today?
It's cloudy as hail. It's literally like and you look at the weather report and it's like 50s and cloudy for the next week and a half. There's sun on Saturday. But in Orange County with the marine layer, you may not get sun even if it says so.
Oh yeah, right.
So I'm totally complaining. And the fact of the matter is, it's ridiculous, right? But
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
circumstantial. Like, how much do we give away our power, our joy, and our happiness to circumstances like the weather? How often do we do that? Or
Well, I gave this some thought since our last broadcast because I
okay,
watched the show and there were a couple of things that I missed.
okay,
And I would really like to catch up on that if
let's
that's
go.
okay.
Yeah,
Sometimes the circumstances are more than just cloud cover.
true.
Sometimes people have really difficult circumstances. They have injuries, illness, grief,
Homelessness. Yeah,
yeah, oh my gosh.
yeah,
So it's important to acknowledge that some stuff is really it's not just an idle complaint. It's something that's really going on for
yeah,
people, you
yeah.
know?
Yep. But it's all about perspective. Like we were talking before the show, it's like, what is the perspective of a situation where you did lose a loved one? Or actually, my next show is going to be on embracing the conversation of death. So how cool is that? But taking yourself and going, okay, I can sit in this, just like you were saying, I can sit in this darkness and heaviness, and I can be there for as long as I allow, right? Or I can make a decision to look for things that are going to help me to see this from another place by hiring someone like James or listening to my show. I'm going to do something that's going to help me to change the frequency, because you only have to change the frequency a little bit.
That's true.
You don't need to go from depression to happiness. That's too far. You just have to incrementally go, oh, I really love this cup of coffee. Or, you just have to do it incrementally
Yes.
when you're in those dark places. But the healing journey is an important one. And that's one that you definitely assist people with.
Yes. And laughter is very, very good in its place. We can't, when I'm with a client, we have to kind of go through it in stages. First, I have to hear their pain. I have to kind
Yes.
of experience it with them. I don't want them to stay there, but I can't ignore it either. We
Right.
have to both acknowledge, okay, what is it we're getting rid of here?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to know where they are. I say that all the time. We need to know where you're at so we can make a plan of where to go. Right.
Yeah. So humor. Humor is a great, they always say laughter is the best medicine. I agree with that.
I mean, it's literally, I think was it a movie with Jim Carrey? Was it Jim
Oh my
Carrey?
gosh, he's my go-to for laughter.
Well, and your red nose reminded
My
me of
red
it.
nose.
He was a
Jim
cancer doctor,
Carrey.
right? Like a cancer doctor. I can't remember the name of the
Oh,
movie.
that was Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, another
Yeah,
funny.
he played a real life MD who used laughter as medicine. Yeah,
And
can't
they
remember
were
the name
like
of that movie.
curing people of cancer. It's like there's something to be said for what happens in your cellular structure
Yeah,
when you laugh and when you feel lighthearted and when you're not like just. I think what happens for people is they just get focused on the troubles, on the problems,
yes,
right?
yes. But wait a second, I got to riff on Jim Carrey for a
Let's
second
go. Let's go.
because you just remind I was a little dark over the weekend, and I had a birthday over the weekend. You would think that I'd be on top of the world, but I wasn't.
Mm,
But I forgot to put on Jim Carrey. Okay, I could have gone right to my DVDs over here
yep.
and grabbed Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. He made 2 movies with that character, and
Yep.
you know what? I mean, if you just say the title, I start laughing because Jim Carrey. There's just something about him. It wasn't just that he was funny; is that he had abandon. He had wild abandon about his humor. He dove right in, took it all the way
He did.
beyond the limit.
He did.
I mean,
He
even
did.
if you watch him like on awards shows, like receiving awards or presenting awards, he's fantastic.
Yeah, he's always in some sort of character and ready to just break free from like the norms of society where we're all trying to just look, perfect and trying to look like we have everything together. And it's like, I think it probably stems back from childhood when we would be really silly and we would get in trouble. Right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Like remember laughing at the dinner table and getting in trouble, and then like once you started and your brother started, you were done. Like
Yeah.
a lot of times sometimes my parents would actually start laughing with us, which was amazing. But I always let my kids laugh at the dinner table. Like that, it's so funny. Like here you are connecting as a family and somebody starts laughing and
Yeah.
it's
Or
or
if company was over and your cousins are there or the neighbors, oh my gosh.
or
Yeah.
like you're in class and you're not supposed to be laughing and
Oh my
I
God.
had a teacher once who was playing, it was a really, really serious class, and we were doing Imagine by John Lennon, and we were supposed to listen to the words and like feel it. And in the middle of the song, my teacher ripped off his sweater and his hair was all messed up. And me and one of my friends started laughing. I have never laughed so hard when I wasn't supposed to be laughing. I think we got kicked out of the class. I'm pretty sure.
Oh my gosh.
Like we got in trouble for laughing.
Who needs that?
I think that's something people should really take note of. Like, what is your relationship to laughter? And what is your beliefs? I didn't even know this was going to come up, but what are your beliefs about laughter and growing up? And, how often are you laughing? Do you laugh every day? I laugh every day.
I laugh every day.
Every day. Every day I find a reason to laugh and I learn something new almost every day.
Yeah, every day. I crack myself up over something.
I love it. I
Mm.
love jokes and I love fun, and that was why we started Fun Friday, was because we wanted to tune into the frequency of fun once a week during the whole craziness of our world the last few years. And I feel like that helped propel us through it a lot easier than most people, which is not a brag. It's just a fact that because I also think in our world, it's really easy. I was in some conversations in Connecticut, some political conversations, which I never get into. and the doom and the gloom and the news and where we're going. And I was just like, okay, I've had enough. I had to get up from the table.
Yeah. Yep.
This is the worst conversation I've had in a long time, you know? And
Yeah.
people think it's like you're a Pollyanna, you know, it's like
Right.
you're avoiding what's happening. And it's like, no, why
Right.
would I tune into a frequency of something that brings me down that I don't have any say in, really, other than what I
Well,
decide for my own life.
right. So see, that's the transitional point. So we don't have any say in it until we recognize that we have a say in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when you talk to people, let's say like you're doing a session with somebody and they're really in their trauma, how quickly from a session, and I'm sure it differs for everybody, but like how quickly can you shift people to a different place vibrationally?
Well, they're going to get a shift in the session. They're going to
Yeah.
get an insight and a shift, and they'll get some relief and some calm or whatever it is, and that everybody's different, right?
Yeah.
And circumstances are different, but they'll get it in the session. The trick is to give them the tools to trigger that when they need it after the session, because they're going to get triggered back. They need a tool to use, right? They're
Yeah.
going to get triggered back. They're going to go back to their situation, back to their environment. The
Yeah.
boss is going to call the brother-in-law. There's going to be an argument. So that's why I need to see them a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's short term, but I need to see
No.
them like more than twice,
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that because and one of the reasons here's your website too
Hey,
for
there it is.
there it is. I explain this a lot about the identity. So you have a certain identity, you identify with certain feelings and certain energies. And when you start to kind of dissemble that, I don't think that's a word, but I just made it up. When you start to deconstruct that, that's what you're doing. You're like a deconstructed cheesecake. You're like taking it. Have you ever had one of those? They're so good. Okay. A deconstructed cheesecake. You're literally taking yourself from somebody that you knew and you're trying to become somebody else. Not trying, you're deciding. But then your old identity is going to be like, hey, you know, you
Right,
get upset when this person says this to you.
right.
That's who you are. And the movement towards the new identity is definitely grounded in the work that you're doing and taking people to a place of, okay, this is like we've got to manifest change by moving forward, not by going back. Like I'm sure you see people go back a lot. Do you feel like
Well,
I never felt like I had to take people all the way from back? Like they kind of revisit and then
yeah. Well, there's a technique called regression in
yeah.
which we intentionally go back. I I don't do that mostly with clients
Mhm.
because they already know what happened. I'm not gonna.
Yes.
Why am I gonna hurt them all over again, right?
No. I
But
did that in therapy. It was
for
fun.
certain cases, yeah, for smokers,
Ugh,
I will regress them to the first time they smoked, and they'll get a very vivid experience of smoking
of a
those
head
cigarettes.
rush, right?
Yeah, who's with them, how old they are, time of day, all of it. Um, the part that's tricky is some of them really enjoyed that first year. Most of them coughed, choked, smoke out in their eyes, and it was unpleasant for them. So that's useful. That kind of regression is useful. I
Definitely.
will use regression to help people remember what it was like before the thing happened.
Yes.
Like remember
Uh-huh.
how confident and happy you were. That's useful,
I like that a lot because
right?
that and I often tell like even my kids that because they're coming through young adulthood and I'm like, that's who you were. Like that person who wasn't afraid to be silly, who did, I mean, I have one that did cartwheels all over the place all the time. That's who you are, not
Yeah.
this person who you've masked, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I had a client who was a surgeon. He was at the end of his career. He was about 72 years old, but he was learning to fly. He was learning to pilot a plane.
Wow.
And so his complaint to me was, I'm a student pilot and I'm afraid to fly. And I never
Oh,
heard of that.
oh,
So he came in, we did a session that I would normally do for people who are afraid to fly. Well,
yeah.
and when he came back for the second session, he gave me information that I wish I had on the first session, but he didn't think of it or he didn't think to tell me. The issue was that he was taking a lesson from an experienced pilot. And he explained to me that the flight teachers, aren't really interested in teaching, most of them.
Okay.
They're pilots who are trying to get more flight hours so that they can qualify for their next, whatever that is.
Right.
So he had this teacher who freaked him out. The teacher was nervous, and then he got nervous, and he didn't get over it. So now every time he goes up on the plane, he's freaked out because he picked it up from this guy. It
Oh,
wasn't his nervousness.
isn't that
So
crazy?
yeah. So once I had that information, I regressed him back to before that happened. And remember how carefree you are and how alert you are. You're attentive to all the details, and you're having so much fun, and you're relaxed the whole bit. After that, he became like my biggest proponent for hypnosis after that.
Well, I mean, that's so freeing, and that's a really great segue into a conversation on how there's energy everywhere. And you could get on an elevator and pick up on somebody's fear. You could get on. I've actually helped a lot of
Yes.
people with fear of flying. I've actually had probably 4 clients that are no longer afraid to fly.
Yes.
It's getting to that connection of where the energy is coming from or where the belief came from, and taking them to a place where they've got a different perspective on it. So like I had a client once who was really afraid to go over bridges or to drive on certain
Oh,
highways,
yes, yes.
and we realized that she was picking up on the collective energy of that bridge because she was empathic, and I helped her to kind of shut down her energy field and realize it wasn't hers. It wasn't her.
Right.
I have other clients who picked up on stuff when they were in utero. Like we went back to in utero and they were picking up on their mother's fears. And that was life changing, life altering. So, like, there's so much power in asking these questions and getting people to realize, oh, this isn't mine and I don't need to choose it anymore. I can actually come from a place of power and confidence because I know that that's just a frequency. Like that's just something I've tuned into and I can tune it out. So good. That
Hell
was
yes.
that was awesome. That was really awesome.
Yes.
I love the idea of that because we don't even realize the collective has a frequency, right? Society has a frequency. Society has a programming. And it's like whether we want to be a part of that or not is up to us to awaken, to research, to look for what we want to see instead of going, well, the news is saying this, so it must be true. And it's like, well, do you want it to be true? I don't want it. It's like half the stuff, we don't want any of that stuff to be true. So where do we go from there? You got to protect your field. You have to be diligent about what you're allowing into your space, because if all of those things, if energy is everywhere, everything is energy, where are we? I stopped going to a nail salon because they played the news every day. I was like,
Ah,
this is not going to be part of my field. I don't want to know this is going on. Ignorance is bliss, call it whatever you will, but I'm protective of my frequency. That's what it is.
right. And this is the golden hour. No news headlines for now.
Hello. Only good news.
Yeah. But you did ask a question that you answered.
Did
Where
I?
do we go from there? So where we go from there in my world is creation.
Mm,
I actually had a client once. A standard question of mine is, tell me about a time in your life when you were happy.
okay.
And one man who was a friend of mine actually said, I've never been happy.
Oh,
So I didn't dig too deep into that because it might be true. Maybe he never was happy. He was adopted into a bad family.
yeah.
Later on, found his natural family, and it wasn't any better with them either.
Yeah.
And so we together we created what happiness is. He had to invent it for himself.
I love this.
There was no other way. There was nothing he could remember or grab onto. There's nothing tangible, nothing memorable. So we created it
Wow.
and then gave him a way that he could feel it, physically. And then,
Wow. So he still had access to it.
yes, he had hope. He
Yep.
had faith, but he
Yep.
had no happiness.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because he didn't even know what happiness is, which actually connects you to the idea that well-being is inside of us. Like we may not feel like we have access to it, but a lot of times it's our mind that's keeping us away from it. So by him just having the desire to feel it, he actually was able to activate it within him.
Yeah. He was open. He was open to it.
I think that should give a lot of hope to a lot of people.
All we need to start with is openness and willingness. If we got that, and we can go anywhere from there.
That is very true. That is very true. And I
Yeah.
would imagine people don't work with you obviously they have to be some sort of willing or hopeful.
If they come into my office, we're good to go. It's a start.
We've already won.
Yeah, yeah. I'll work. Well, I only need a tiny thread of willingness. I will tug on it until it becomes a rope.
Same.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, like, if I show up in your life, and this isn't a brag, it's like, if I show up for you, you're on your way. There's a frequency that I'm in. And if you have access to it, then you have the ability to create everything I share. Everything.
Did you always have that frequency? Tell me,
Oh,
Golden
God,
Duffy.
no. God,
So
no. My
tell me about the journey.
My mother used to call me Sarah Bernhardt when I was little. I don't even know who Sarah Bernhardt is, but I
Yeah.
complained. Like I had a rough childhood in that I always had someone that was trying to keep me down. So I complained about that a lot for good reason, right? But it wasn't received, it was made fun of. It's like, oh, there's always something wrong with you. Like I remember I fell. This is horrible. I fell. I was running home because I had to go to the bathroom and I was at my neighbor's and we had this huge boulders. We were in Connecticut in the woods. We had this huge boulder and I ran and I tripped and I slid down it and I just bursted my knee open
Ooh.
and I peed my pants and I walked home and I was crying and I remember I couldn't even like straighten my leg out for a few days. Like that's how bad it was. And my mom was just like, and God bless her, just like you're fine. You're fine. And I probably have done this to my own kids. You're fine, right? Like
Yeah.
stop your complaining. But
Yeah.
that was kind of I just felt like I wasn't received in that way. So over the course of years, and then when I started to realize, I think I've always been a pretty positive person. I've always been deeply spiritual. Like since I had my kids in my early 20s, I went on a spiritual journey. So I've always been very spiritual, which means I feel like I've got a deep connection to well-being, to life force, right? And then as I started to study the science of law of attraction, I realized, oh my goodness, I'm making all this stuff happen. I can actually have a say in our finances. I can have a say in the abundance I could create. I can have a say in what I bring to the world instead of, woe is me. That's when things really started to transition.
Ah,
Yeah. And I still
wonderful.
like my girls will remind me, my husband will remind me that sometimes I can go to that place where I'm like, well, I don't want this to happen. Like my little one just went camping by herself. Okay. She's 19. She's not that little. She's like, Mom, I'm going camping by myself. I'm like, don't really love that idea. Mom, I have angels and they're all going to be with me and protecting me and I'm safe. And I'm like, you're right. But even as a mother, I need to be reminded of those things that we have this non-physical guidance and support and my kids all have it. Saved me a lot of suffering being a mother of four daughters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Cause we're
I'm
not
from New
here a lot
York.
when we go to bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You're from New York,
In
right?
my upbringing, angels don't count, you know?
It was scary, right? Like, and that's what we do. And a lot of times my kids would say to me, Mom, don't hand me your fears.
Oh my gosh. Right.
Don't tell me what you're afraid of. Don't tell me what's on the news because and we feel like we're protecting them, but we're really just putting them in the frequency of fear. And that's why
Limitation.
I'm so against horror movies. I'm so against watching the murders on the news. I'm so against that stuff because you open your frequency to that vibratory force. It's like, okay, well, I don't want to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and think about somebody stabbing me. So I'm not going to watch a show that perpetuates that.
Yeah, same here. Yes. Especially
Right.
not right before bedtime.
Right. Exactly. So if we have control over what we allow into our field, then we have control over what we create in our field.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same thing with news. Certain news headlines, violent news, I won't look at it. I will not
No,
open it and look at it. I'm not curious.
no. And
Yeah.
if there's nothing that we can do about it, then what are we benefiting from listening to that?
Yeah. Now, in terms of working with my clients, I have to make sure that I'm not giving them my limiting beliefs.
Ah,
They might be asking for something that I might not think it's possible, but I must be open to the possibility. I
definitely.
don't limit them.
Because anything is possible. That's the crazy thing that I keep getting messages over and over and over again. And I'm not going to go into the whole story, but I just manifested some crazy stuff and travel and all of that. And what I realized was there's no block to anything we want to do except for us. We're the ones that get in the way of all the manifestations. Like we're the ones that say, "Oh, that's not possible because my least favorite thing that people say is I can't afford it." And I'm just
Ah,
like, "What do you mean?"
so how do you counter that? How do you counter that?
When
What's your
people
answer to that? Yeah.
Oh, I always tell people that first of all, when you're open to possibilities, you always put money at the forefront. So you're like, you look at your finances and you go, I can't afford to go on that trip, right? When you do that, you block all of the things that could come to you that could actually manifest your ability to go on that trip. Free places to stay, or I mean, we've manifested tickets to Hawaii. There's so many things, but because you don't even take the step forward and you put the block in right away by saying, I can't, right? Then you don't allow yourself to be part of the creation process. You automatically say, I can't do it. Instead, if you were to say, how can I do it? Well, like, hang on a second. Let's talk about this for a second. How could we do this? How can we leave work for a week? How can we do this? Then the ways open up in possibilities that you never realized before. And the currency of the experience is what I'm all about right now. Like, I actually went to a celebrity's home this past week. I spent some time with a celebrity. I'm not going to say his name because that would be disrespectful, I think. But I went in his hot tub and his sauna and his pool, and I was with my family. And then he has a pond, and he was jumping in the pond after the sauna, and it's like so cold, like so cold. Well, in the past, I would be the type of person who's like, no, I'm not going to do that. But now I'm like, oh, I want to experience that. It hurt, but it was great. It was so refreshing, so exhilarating. So now I'm just like, okay, what can I do? What are the experiences that I can, instead of taking it and going, oh, I'm not going to do this because this could happen, or I'm not going to jump in that pond because it's going to be cold. I'm just like, okay, I want to feel that. I want to know what that feels like. So by not blocking ourselves, I feel like I manifested going to a celebrity's house and spending time with him. And he's a great person, like, regardless of the celebrity status, he's a great person. So when we put ourselves in a new place of how can I versus I can't, the energy field
Hmm.
opens up, right?
Yes.
So
Does
much.
it open up right away for you?
Sometimes lately, I feel like there's been a lot of instant manifestations. Like the trip that I just took manifested in a couple of days, and it shocked the crap out of me. Like I did not see it coming, and it all of a sudden unfolded in a very fast way. So a lot of times it does happen like that for me. Bigger things, we have more energy about it. So it takes more time for us to acclimate or assimilate to the energy field.
Yes.
The greatest thing is just not to lose faith, is just
Yes.
to keep
Well,
yourself.
there's also something else about you, Golden Duffy, which I've noticed, which is that you're present to the evidence in your life of manifestation. So you're not looking at what if it doesn't work. You're leaning on the evidence that it works.
The evidence that it works, and I'm always watching the energy field. So I'm always watching for things to open up. Like when I want to manifest something, I'm always like paying attention to the field because I can feel when energy flows. Everybody can do this. I am special, but
Yeah.
anybody can do this. Anybody can pay attention and be aware of how they feel. I was actually in Vegas for a thing right before I went on vacation for a work thing. And I was supposed to stay until 5 o'clock that day. And I got a very strong intuition to get on the road. We were leaving the next morning for the East Coast. So I had to do a lot of things. So I got this intuition to leave, and I think it upset the presenter. I had to be okay with that. I had to embrace my intuition and say, I'm going to leave. And as soon as I told him that I was leaving, I got this massive joy and relief. And I'm like,
Ah,
that was my answer. Well, because I left at 1 o'clock versus 5 o'clock, I got stuck in 20 minutes of traffic versus 2 hours of traffic.
my
So
goodness.
my intuition was spot on, right? So it's listening to that inner voice. It's taking your cues from the universe instead of being like, oh, that's silly. I'm just going to stay here and suffer because this man is presenting. And I don't like when people leave in the middle of my presentation. And he was very understanding. So that was also my cue. But I was like, I have to do what's right for me. Right. But,
Right. You have to do
too
what's
many
right for
people
you.
are running around obligated and like, like, oh, I can't do that because this person's going to be upset. And it's like, well, what about you? Right. Like, okay, I could stay there and make sure everybody's okay, leave at 5 o'clock and be stuck in 2 hours of traffic, get home at 11 o'clock and have to get up at 4 to leave. Like, that's crazy.
Wait, I have a question for you. I have to interrupt.
Okay.
How does the energy field appear to you? Is it a physical sensation? Is it a knowing?
Yeah, it's a feeling. It's a feeling. There's a knowing. There's definitely a knowing at this stage of the game for me, but there's a feeling. Like how we feel often dictates what direction we're supposed to go in. Anytime you feel relief or joy, you're on the right track. And if you feel resistance and dread, that's something to look at, because resistance and dread often resistance is just you haven't accepted what's happening, but it's also like I was thinking about this morning. Sometimes resistance is about assimilation. Like we're not ready for the big time yet, right? Like
Yeah.
our spirit needs a little time to expand and grow, and sometimes we need to kind of play in that field, but people get stuck in resistance. So what was your question? Did I answer it? Yeah,
Yes, you answered it. It's a
feeling.
physical sensation for you.
It's a physical sensation, it's a feeling, it's a oh yes, this way, the way lights up for me. Like, it's called the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so people do get stuck, but they also get there's also the questioning, the self-doubt, the wondering, like, am I on the right track?
Yeah, and I have that. I definitely have that. And then something will pop up on my Instagram. It's like hilarious. When you pay attention to the messages that are out there or the license plates. So we made this decision to go back east to our hometown. I got up to go to Vegas at 3 o'clock in the morning. I wanted to go to the gym before I left for Vegas. And I'm driving and there's a car in front of me with a Connecticut license plate that has 5 3s on it. And I texted my friend and my husband. I said, I'm pretty sure God had a hand in this Connecticut thing. Like it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to the gym, and the person in front of me pulling into the gym at 4 o'clock in the morning has a Connecticut license plate. For me, that is irrefutable. Like you can't argue with me that not a sign. You know,
What was it a sign of?
it was a sign that we were doing the right thing, and I didn't have doubts that we were doing the right thing. It was just a confirmation of you're in the energy flow, you're following your highest excitement. And my friend and I, we rented a lake house and we met back in Connecticut, and the whole week that was our thing. What's
Ah,
our highest excitement?
wow.
And sometimes it was going back to the house and laying on the dock. Sometimes it was going to the ice cream shop where we went to as kids, but we did that all week. And I was like, could you imagine if you did that in your life? Like, what's my highest excitement right now?
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, you might not ever get your laundry done, but you have a good time.
I'm gonna get my laundry done. You know what my highest excitement was this week?
What?
I spoke in front of my business networking group,
Yeah.
and for the first 3 or 4 minutes, we did the pendulum experiment. Oh,
Wow.
that's not the pendulum experiment. That's the
No,
theory
what
of
is the
mind.
pendulum experiment? What do
I
you mean?
gave them I gave everybody. There were about 75 people in the room.
Mhm.
I gave everybody this chart,
Okay.
and
All
then
right.
I gave them a pendulum.
Okay.
And I asked them to hold the chart in front of you on the table and hold the pendulum over the chart.
Okay.
The way the experiment goes is hold the pendulum over the center of the chart. Now concentrate on the circle.
Okay.
Let your eyes go around and around the circle, and you'll notice that the pendulum starts to swing in that direction, around and around and around. So I'm giving it's a suggestibility test. It's
Are
not
you are
hypnosis.
you question are you do you have a question in your head that you're gonna get an answer to?
Um, Not for this experiment. That's if I have somebody in my office and we've got 10 or 15 minutes to do it.
Oh, that's cool.
I had a 10-minute slot, so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I burned up about 3 minutes on this little
So
experiment.
what did they come to? What was their awareness about it afterwards?
Well, there were 75 people in the room.
Wow.
And I didn't monitor every person, but
Right.
I monitored enough to see that most of the pendulums were swinging around and around. That was good enough. So I said, okay, you can
Wow.
stop, put down the pendulum. Then I had to go on with my talk. But I did tell them, look, if the pendulum didn't move for you, it doesn't really mean anything. It's
Okay.
inconclusive. It probably means you need a few more minutes of concentration, or
Mm.
perhaps you were distracted by being in this big room with so many other people. It really means nothing. It doesn't mean you can't be hypnotized. If the pendulum moved at least a little bit, it means that you're suggestible and hypnotizable. And if the pendulum moved a lot, it means you're completely under my power and you'll do anything I say.
You know,
So
last time I did this show with you, my husband wanted to know if you made me cluck like a chicken.
tune
I
in
said,
next time and
"No."
find out, folks.
Yes, maybe next time. I know you should probably hypnotize me at some point on air. That would be fun.
I'd love to.
I don't know what
Sure.
I might say though. I don't know. I think I'm a pretty open book.
Well, if we had an agreement that I wouldn't
Okay.
deliberately embarrass you, you know.
All right. I like that.
Yeah.
I really it's funny because I don't get embarrassed anymore.
Yeah.
Which shocks my husband sometimes. Like we were trying to do this equipment at the gym the other day, and I was being really ridiculous about it because I couldn't figure it out, and I was like laying on the floor to get off of it and like sliding off, and he's like, "You look ridiculous," and I'm like, "I don't care." So what? Right? Oh, I feel like
How
the
funny.
more ridiculous, the better, right? Like,
Sure, if somebody
why
get
are we afraid to look ridiculous?
if somebody gets a good laugh, who cares?
What is that about? Like, right? I
Okay,
love
you look funny, okay, Golden?
I do.
You look so funny. Oh my
I
gosh.
don't know why I don't wear you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to put these in my glove compartment, and if I got pulled over for speeding, I was gonna say, "Is there
Officer,
a
is there a
problem,
problem?
officer?" I gotta put these in my car. I'm not gonna get pulled over for
Oh
speeding.
my
I don't
gosh.
speed, actually.
You
I'm
should
not.
wear them in the supermarket and walk up and down every aisle.
I know. I need to get those out. You're right. All right, so we have a few minutes left. We've got about
No, I need another hour with you.
well, let's do it. I'm open. I've
Okay.
got shows. Let's do it's just fun and it's lighthearted. And I think when we come together as a unit, when we come together with other people who can raise our vibe, right? Who can show us the brighter side of life. You know, they're not the gloom and doomers. And I know we all have people in our family that are like that. I was just with some people that tend to focus on and interestingly, and this is not a judgment. I always say I'm not judgy, I'm just observant. The people that are so in these gloom and doom situations, their lives are very reflective of it. So if you are like suffering, you know, even the girl that I connected with that was homeless today, I thought, girlfriend, you need to rise up. Now I didn't say that to her, and that may seem very disheartening or cold of me, but I've been in situations where I've almost been homeless. And the reason why my husband and I were never homeless is because we stood up. You know, we got into our power. We didn't look for the government to save us. We didn't look for people to give us handouts. Now, we did ask for charity a few times. That usually didn't work out. We did actually receive money from people who helped us, which I'm forever grateful for. But we didn't stay in that energy field. We didn't stay in the energy field of woe is me, who can save me. We got up and we saved ourselves. And I think as people in this universe, knowing that we have the ability to extrapolate life force and live from our highest and best energy fields, why would we not do that? Right?
Right.
Why would we wake up every day and not do the things that we know are going to put us in the best case scenario for more money, more joy, more love, more freedom? Why wouldn't we do that? It's a question.
Indeed.
It's a question I ask, you know? Do you have times when you're like in that field of like trying to, I don't know, where you're like not doing the things you know you could be
Sure.
doing? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And
I think that there's some certain part of every day that I do that.
you do.
Yeah, it might be just for a few minutes.
Yep,
It might be longer.
yep. See, I'm like the type of person that I know if I go to the gym in the morning, my day is set up. It's set up for success because I feel the best when I go and do a little workout. So I know that if I don't do that, I'm not going to feel my best. So I wouldn't do that. Right.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm curious. I'm curious to why people would say, oh no, I don't meditate because I can't. That's a lot of people say.
Well, that's a belief. That's a limiting belief right
Like
there.
my meditation is my lifeline. It's my lifeline. It's also
Yeah.
my break. It's and I don't think people realize that. It's a break from the outside world.
Yeah.
Like
So
that.
we get, I'm saying we as a human, we
Yeah.
get entrenched in our limiting beliefs.
Mhm.
We start to they
Yeah.
become like treasures to
Yeah.
us. So when
That's
I
true.
catch a client doing that, I need to coach them right away. I need to interrupt them, break the pattern. We need to interrupt the pattern
Yep.
so they
Yeah.
can have something else. But it's hard to do with some people because they're entrenched and they've been doing it for decades. I've
Right.
had people come to me who've been smoking for 40 years and they say smoking relaxes me. Well,
Yeah.
that's not true.
Yeah.
We know it's not true. You can measure it. You can measure your blood pressure going up and your body temperature and your heart rate, all of that.
Yeah, and your health is decreasing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But they'll say, but it's good, I like it.
But I love
It relaxes me. Yeah.
it. You're like, "Does it really?" And
So
so
they're
so you have to uncover all those false beliefs.
yeah, they just need to give me a little thread.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's something they don't like because they're in my office talking to me, paying me to
Right.
help them become non-smokers, and yet they're defending it at the same time. It's
Right.
weird. It's people are so funny.
Well, it's because it's that identity. It's what they identify with. You know, it's like once they
Yeah.
start to say, "I'm a non-smoker," instead of "I'm a
Yeah.
smoker," then it starts to change and unravel the belief systems. But
Right.
if you were to like take someone and say, "All right, I've got a formula that every day you can follow. And if you follow this formula, you're going to be like a manifestation master."
Yes.
How many people do you think would follow the formula?
They will all say yes, give it to me,
So
and they might even be sincere, but again, they're going to get triggered back.
yeah. Yeah.
So I have to give them the tools to withstand whatever those triggers are going to be. So many times people who come to me to quit smoking say that they had quit before. So I ask them, well, what brought you back to smoking? It's almost always the same story. I was out with friends, we were having a few drinks, somebody whipped out a cigarette and I said, give me one of those, and then
Got
they
it.
were back
Yeah.
sitting after years of being announced, suddenly they're smokers again.
Wow.
Crazy.
Crazy
So
how fast that can happen.
yeah, but that's encouraging to me because it means that their subconscious knows how to be a non-smoker. They just need to remember it
Right.
and choose it. They have to consciously choose it. I'll help them with the subconscious part.
Yeah. It's consciously choose it and consciously live from it. So that's like one of the things I teach people who've gone through a lot of financial struggle, because I have, and I'm pretty aware of those tendencies for me. Like I would have fear whenever I used my debit card. It took me years to get over that. And because
How
of
did you get
that,
over it?
um,
Come on, Golden Duffy. Tell us how
you
you
know
did
what?
it.
I really well, and I do think online banking helped that because I can check balances now. But I got to the point where we shifted from struggle and not having enough into having plenty. And so it took that time of that old identity, and there's still things that I need to release from, like the worry about money, or feeling like, oh, I got to make money this week and I've got to, figure that out. So I'm still coming through that, but the truth is when you step into a new awareness of who you are and the ability you have to be a powerful manifester, that not having enough money, it goes. But
Yeah.
you have to work on it. You have to even I had to work on it when I didn't have enough money. I had to work on it every day and go, there's plenty. I used to always say I have everything I need, and then I started saying I have more than I need because I didn't want to just have everything I needed.
Wow, sure.
So
Yeah.
that was a shift in my everyday. I thought I was saying the right thing, and my energy
Yeah.
lady was like, "You're not. You want to have more than enough. I
Yes.
have an abundance, right?"
Yeah, I was trained for just enough for many
Yeah.
years. Things are changing now, but I came to that realization too. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. So now it's just interrupting the thoughts that connect with that old identity, which is the worries, the anxieties, the looking at a bill and going, how am I going to pay that? Instead, I like this morning I was going to pay my water bill and I forgot to pay it last month, and I was like, just pay it. And I love it because like on the banking thing, when you're paying your bills, it just goes pay it, and you click pay it, and I'm just like,
All
pay it.
right.
Like, boom.
Yeah.
It's not even due yet,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
paying it. And
Yeah.
that's a shift in my reality, because before it was like, oh, I have to pay this bill before it's due. Oh, darn, we're out of time. Oh, James, it's
I
always
want to offer any listener $100 off their first
oh,
session.
$100 off, baby. Here's the
First
website.
session.
Here
Yeah.
you go. My
Yes.
friend, my amazing, incredible creator.
I am so grateful to you,
You're
Golden
coming
Ducky.
back on, buddy.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I'm going to close out the show, but don't leave me.
Okay.
All right. Love you, James. All
Okay.
right. Peace, everybody. That went
Bye,
so
everybody.
fast. I was like, whoa, where did it go? Oh, love you. All right.
Love you
Let's
back.